Welcome to the AI for Good Global Summit in Geneva, and I'm delighted now to be joined by Sasha Rubel, who's the head of AI policy for Amazon Web Services, covering Europe, Middle East, and Africa, which means that you travel a lot.
I do.
So, one of the big issues, of course, at this summit is how can AI help us with the SDGs? So, tell me what you're doing.
We're seeing customers of Amazon Web Services leverage AI to meet the Sustainable Development Goals in multiple different ways. So as a couple of examples, one of our customers, Growy, is advancing vertical farming using AI to reduce hunger around the world. We also see a lot of advances in the field of AI for gender equality, where AI services are being used to mitigate and identify bias in, for example, job postings online, or to quantify the amount of time in media that women or men are taking the floor and really rectifying that to make sure that there's more equity in the time of speech online and on camera. Another way that we see this is the complete transformation of personalized education. So we've been working, for example, with the University of Padova to really harness generative AI to advance personalized learning and education so that individuals can meet their educational aspirations and goals much quicker. Another really exciting dimension that we found is in the health space. So in health, we have companies like Oaken or NeuroPro or Sergenex in Ireland that are really looking at how to harness AI to transform personalized medicine, but also advance clinical research and reduce the amount of time needed to transform data into insights. And then lastly, something that's top of mind for people everywhere is the question of the energy crisis. Companies like Octopus Energy are harnessing AI to make sure that households that may not have the money necessary in order to pay their bills can mitigate the ways in which they're consuming energy and making renewable energy at an affordable cost available to the population.
They're really interesting examples. On the energy one in particular, I mean, how do they know? Do they download an app of yours and it has AI on it that tells them what their energy costs are?
So Octopus Energy uses our AI services to really look at consumption during different times of the day. And as you know, depending on when you're using energy in the time of day, the cost is different. And they help consumers and households in multiple different countries look at when they want to be, for example, running their washing machine or putting the heating on in order to make sure that families, in the face of an energy crisis, can really make sure that they have access to this really fundamental need.
I get it on the gender one you mentioned as well, that it's men are hogging the stage too much compared to women, but who's monitoring that? You got that information. Who's actually monitoring that?
So one of the things that we are very convinced of at Amazon Web Services is that AI can really transform data into actionable insights. So by using these AI services to monitor the amount of time that women and men are speaking on media, for example, we can then transform that data into actions. So for example, making sure that women and men have more equal speaking time on stage, on screen, and online.
Interesting. Of course, there's risks. And you have to mitigate those. How do you do that?
So at Amazon Web Services, in our DNA, is the conviction that responsibility is not only a starting point, it's also the middle point and the end point. And it's one of the reasons why, for us, responsibility is seen as the responsibility of all of the actors inside of our company. We have a set of responsible AI principles, and we really have a four-pronged approach to making sure that those are reflected not only in the services that we build, but also in the ways in which we support our customers to develop and deploy technology responsibly. And we do that in four different ways. One is really operationalizing these principles into practice. So there are principles like transparency, explainability, accountability, privacy. If you say these to most of the people, they will agree that these principles are important. But if you say that to an engineer is going to say, well, how do I embed that in my AI services? So we spend a lot of time moving from principles to practice and providing operational guidelines of how this can be embedded in our services. The other second dimension that we really focus on is diversity. So there are a lot of studies that show that more diverse teams produce more innovation and higher returns of investment and growth. And so that's something that we really emphasize, not only in terms of equity between men and women, but also backgrounds. So my team has philosophers, lawyers, ethicists together, and that's something that we find really important.
Thirdly,
we focus on education. So really making sure that individuals inside our company, for our customers, and also citizens more broadly, are equipped with the education and skills necessary to understand what artificial intelligence is as a technology, but also how to develop and deploy it responsibly. And that's why we launched our AI Ready commitment last year, which makes available more than 80 plus classes online to make sure that citizens everywhere are equipped with the knowledge to participate in this transformation.
Quickly, fourth.
And fourthly, research. The field of AI is transforming at an unbelievably rapid pace. And we acknowledge that there are emerging risks and issues that come up with generative AI, like data security and privacy, hallucinations, intellectual property and copyright. And we invest a lot in making sure that there are platforms for cooperation between industry, civil society, and academia to advance the science behind responsible AI.
So how do you envisage AI transforming society in the long term?
We are convinced that AI will transform every dimension of society. And in a recent report that we found and commissioned, we really took away the conviction of citizens around the world that they are convinced that over the next 5 years, AI will change the way we live, it will change the way we work, and it will change the way we can work collectively, above all, to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. And that goes from issues like health and education to questions around gender equality and zero poverty.
Sasha, finally, obviously there's blockers, and you've got to overcome that, the hesitation. How do you address that?
So in this commissioned report that I just mentioned, we found that there were 3 key blockers to AI adoption. The first is regulatory uncertainty. So in the companies that we surveyed, we found that 31% of companies said that lack of regulatory clarity was actually impeding them from adopting AI. And in fact, they were intending to invest up to 48% less over a 3-year period based on this regulatory uncertainty. So to address that, we really see the need to provide the regulatory certainty necessary for companies to innovate. And in this way, they can, for example, build on international standards and initiatives like the G7 Code of Conduct, the work of the UN and the OECD, in order to make sure that these national champions in places like France or Canada or Brazil can scale their solutions in other areas of the world.
And so there was just 2 others very briefly.
So the second gap that we identified was the lack of digital skills. So 61% of businesses that we surveyed said that a lack of digital skills inside of their company was actually impeding them from adopting AI. And employees said they would love to learn new skills, but they didn't have the time and the classes were too expensive. And so that's one of the reasons why we launched this commitment and this availability of different classes to make sure that they could have access to self-paced learning to be part of this transformation.
And thirdly?
And thirdly, and lastly, we found that there's a gap in the rate of adoption between bigger companies who are adopting AI at a bigger rate, so 51%, versus smaller companies, 31%. And here we really see the need to provide support to the backbone of many societies around the world, which is the startup and innovation community, so they are equipped with the tools necessary in order to innovate with AI.
Some really fascinating examples there and some great numbers. We've got some number crunching there on what's been done. Fascinating. Thank you very much. So that's Sasha Rubel from Amazon Web Services. And we'll have much more on the AI for Good program here, so do stay tuned.